The clanging of weights, the rhythmic pounding of a treadmill, the unmistakable scent of sweat and overpriced protein shakes. This wasn't just any gym. This was Titan Fitness, an ultra-exclusive training ground for the rich, the famous, and the genetically gifted. A place where social media influencers flexed in the mirror more than they actually lifted, where elite athletes came to push their limits, and where personal trainers charged more per session than some people made in a week. And today was just another day in paradise, until he walked in. The doors swung open with no fanfare, no entourage, no obnoxious entry music blasting from a Bluetooth speaker, just the quiet, purposeful stride of a man who'd seen it all before. Chuck Norris. Dressed in a simple, well-worn t-shirt and loose training pants, he didn't look like much compared to the sculpted fitness models surrounding him. No flashy gear, no massive gym bag overflowing with the latest supplements. Just a legend who had nothing left to prove. And yet, in this temple of vanity, he was invisible. No heads turned, no cameras pointed his way. The younger crowd, raised on TikTok influencers and Instagram fitness gurus, had no idea who just entered their domain. Chuck made his way to an old-school weight machine in the corner, away from the mirror-lined walls, where influencers meticulously crafted their content. He adjusted the pin on the weight stack and began his warm-up, moving with quiet efficiency. That's when the trouble began. Across the gym, Blake the Beast Johnson finished his latest #Jamalfa Instagram story. A towering, chiseled influencer with over 2 million followers, Blake was the self-proclaimed king of Titan Fitness. He was loud, arrogant, and obsessed with proving his dominance in every way possible. Whether it was lifting heavier, looking better, or crushing anyone who dared to challenge him, Blake made sure everyone knew who ruled the iron jungle. And today, his target was about to be Chuck Norris. Blake spotted him using the older weight machine, one that real lifters had long abandoned for newer, sleeker models. A smirk crossed his face. Who was this old guy? He turned to his cameraman, who was always on standby to capture content. "Bro," Blake said loud enough for the entire gym to hear, "check out Grandpa Gaines over there." A few chuckles rippled through the nearby lifters. Encouraged, Blake continued, "Yo, old man, you lost. This isn't a retirement home." Chuck didn't respond. He didn't even flinch. Blake wasn't used to being ignored. He strutted over, camera still rolling, voice dripping with mockery. "Seriously, bro, we've got a silver sneakers class on Tuesdays. Maybe come back then." A few gym-goers laughed. A few others, wiser ones, took a step back. Something about Chuck's quiet presence made them uneasy, like the stillness before a storm. Blake, however, saw only an easy win, and he wanted content. Blake turned his phone screen toward his audience. Live viewers were pouring in by the thousands. His followers thrived on gym dominance, and right now, he was setting up what they all loved, an easy, viral humiliation. "All right, guys, get ready for some premium content," Blake grinned into the camera. "Time to teach this boomer a lesson in modern strength." He turned back to Chuck, who was still finishing his set, completely unfazed. "All right, Gramps, here's the deal. Let's make this fun. You versus me. Bench press challenge. Let's see if your AARP membership comes with a strength upgrade." The gym was now fully invested. Phones came out. People whispered. Some smirked, knowing Blake was about to do what he did best, dominate. Chuck finally looked up, setting the weights down with deliberate ease. He exhaled slowly, wiping his hands with a towel. His eyes met Blake's with a look that wasn't anger, wasn't intimidation, just calm amusement. Blake expected an argument, a denial, an excuse. What he got instead was something worse. Chuck nodded. "All right, kid, if that's what you want." The gym erupted. Blake's face lit up in triumph. "Oh, this is gonna be good!" He pointed at one of the prime benches in front of the gym mirrors. "Meet me there! Let's put on a show!" Chuck simply grabbed his water bottle and walked over. Blake turned to his cameraman. "Dude, I'm about to send this dude straight to Snap City." He turned back to Chuck, flexing. "You sure about this, old-timer? This isn't some 1980s action movie. This is real weight, real strength." Chuck shrugged. "You talk a lot, kid. Let's lift." Blake's grin widened. He was about to go viral. What he didn't know was that Chuck Norris had already won. The bench press station sat at the center of the gym, framed by massive mirrors reflecting the eager crowd that had gathered. The moment Chuck and Blake approached, phones were raised, fingers hovered over record buttons, and a wave of anticipation rippled through Titan Fitness. Blake strutted over, cracking his knuckles like he was about to do battle. "All right, old man, let's start light, yeah? Don't want you popping a hip." Chuck merely adjusted his wrist wraps, his face unreadable. Blake turned to his cameraman. "Let's set the bar at 405 pounds. Gotta give Gramps a fighting chance." The plates clanked onto the barbell, a familiar, intimidating sound. A weight this heavy wasn't for the average lifter. It was a weight reserved for the strongest in the gym. Blake stretched dramatically, rolling his shoulders before lying back on the bench. "All right, boys, time to show you how it's done." A spotter stood behind him, hands ready just in case, though Blake waved him off. He wanted no assistance, no excuses. The gym went silent as he gripped the bar. Deep breath, lower the bar, elbows bending under the massive pressure. He grunted, his face contorted with effort, but after a struggle, the bar rose back up. Rep complete. Blake racked the weight and shot up, flexing as the gym cheered. "Easy! That's how a real man lifts." Chuck remained seated on the bench beside him, watching the performance like a teacher watching a student show off before a test. Blake slapped the bench. "All right, Gramps, let's see what you got." Chuck stood, stretching his shoulders. He didn't adjust the weight. He didn't ask for a spotter. He simply lay down, gripped the bar, and pressed it with one hand. The gym lost its mind. Blake's smug grin evaporated. His cameraman gasped. The live stream chat exploded. "No way! Did he just one-arm 405? Blake's finished, bro! Pack it up!" Chuck racked the weight as casually as if he had just benched an empty bar. He sat up, rolling his wrist like he was shaking off dust. Blake's mouth opened, but no words came out. Chuck simply nodded. "Your turn, kid." Blake stared at the barbell, sweat pooling at his temple. He looked at the weight, at Chuck, and then at the crowd, which was waiting for him to answer. And in that moment, for the first time in his entire influencer career, Blake had no idea what to do. Blake's fingers twitched at his sides. His breath came quicker. His mind scrambled for a response, some way to recover from what had just happened. Then it hit him. He turned sharply to his cameraman. "All right, okay, whatever. Bench press is cool and all, but real strength, that's body weight control. Let's see how well Gramps does at something that requires actual agility." Pull-ups. The crowd shifted, eager to see what would happen next. Blake stomped over to the pull-up bar, shaking his arms loose. "All right, time for proper alpha dominance. No machines, no tricks, just raw strength." Chuck raised an eyebrow. "All right, what are the rules?" Blake smirked. "Whoever does more reps wins, and no cheating." Chuck nodded. "Fair? You first." Blake gripped the bar and yanked himself up. His muscles flexed, veins popping as he pulled his chin over the bar. The crowd counted. 1, 2, 3. His biceps swelled. His back tightened. He kept going, rep after rep, the pressure mounting. By the time he hit 20, his face had turned beet red. By 25, his arms trembled. Finally, at 30 reps, he dropped down, panting. He turned to Chuck, flashing a cocky grin, though it was clear he was winded. "Beat that, old man!" Chuck stepped forward. He didn't do a warm-up. He didn't adjust his grip. Instead, he reached up and did a one-finger pull-up. The entire gym lost their minds. Gasps, shouts, disbelief. The live stream chat exploded. "I can't even do one with two hands, WTF! Bro, is he even human?" Blake just got turned into an NPC LMAO. Chuck casually knocked out 10 one-finger pull-ups, then switched hands and did 10 more. Blake was silent. His live viewers were roasting him. His cocky attitude was crumbling. Chuck dropped to the floor, rolling his shoulders. That was fun. Blake wasn't laughing anymore. Desperate, humiliated, and now being mocked by his own fans, Blake did the one thing his pride would allow. He challenged Chuck Norris to a fight. The crowd gasped. Chuck's eyes narrowed slightly, and just like that, Titan Fitness was about to witness something that would be talked about for years. A heavy silence settled over Titan Fitness. The clanging of weights had stopped. The hum of treadmills faded into the background. Every single person in the gym was now staring at the scene unfolding in front of them. Blake, still fuming from his humiliating defeats, clenched his fists. His face was twisted in rage, but it was more than that. It was desperation. He needed to win something, anything, to reclaim his pride, so he did the dumbest thing imaginable. He pointed a finger at Chuck Norris. "All right, old man," he growled. "Let's see how tough you really are. I challenge you to a sparring match, right here, right now." The gym collectively gasped. Even his own cameraman froze. Chuck, for the first time, actually reacted. He slowly tilted his head, looking at Blake like he had just challenged a tornado to a foot race. "A fight?" Chuck repeated, as if making sure he heard correctly. Blake cracked his knuckles, rolling his shoulders. "Yeah, unless you're too scared to take me on." There was that cocky grin again. The same grin he had flashed before each of his humiliations. The same grin that had led him here, step by step, into absolute disaster. Chuck exhaled through his nose. "Kid, do you know what you're asking for?" Blake scoffed. "I know you're just some old actor who used to throw fake punches in movies. This is a real fight." Chuck studied him for a moment, then nodded. "All right. But if we do this, you have to sign a waiver." Blake frowned. "A waiver?" Chuck shrugged. "Standard gym liability. I don't want you suing after you wake up." The crowd exploded with laughter. Blake's smirk faltered for half a second, but he forced it back. Yeah, whatever. Let's do this." The gym owner hurried over, sweat forming at his brow. Mr. Norris, sir, are you sure about this? We have a liability policy, but..." Chuck raised a hand. "It'll be quick." That wasn't reassurance. That was a warning. The gym's small MMA ring was cleared instantly. The crowd pressed in on all sides, cameras ready, waiting to witness history. Blake, pumped up and ready, bounced on his toes, throwing practice jabs. He had trained in basic boxing for content, but in his mind, that made him a fighter. Chuck, he didn't stretch. He didn't hop around. He just stood there. The bell rang. Blake charged forward like a bull. He swung hard, aiming for Chuck's jaw. Chuck simply wasn't there anymore. Blake stumbled forward, confused. He turned just in time to see Chuck tilt his head slightly, like a teacher waiting for a student to realize their mistake. Blake threw another punch, faster this time. Chuck stepped aside. Blake threw a kick. Chuck shifted an inch and it missed completely. The audience started laughing. Blake snarled and came in with a full combination. Jabs, crosses, hooks, but none of them connected. Chuck moved like he was dodging raindrops. His feet barely left the ground. His breathing never changed. Blake, however, was getting exhausted. "What the hell?" he panted. "Stop dodging and fight me!" Chuck tilted his head. "All right." Then he tapped Blake's shoulder. It was barely a push, yet Blake flew backward, landing hard against the mat. He scrambled to his feet, shaking with frustration. Chuck smiled. "Still want me to stop dodging?" Blake roared and charged again. He never saw it coming. Chuck's roundhouse kick landed with surgical precision, sending Blake flying across the ring and crashing into the padded corner. The sound echoed through the gym like a gunshot. Silence. Then the live stream chat exploded. "OMG, he's dead. Bro got extinguished." The spirit left his body before he hit the mat. Chuck Norris doesn't do rematches. The fight ends when he decides. Blake, groaning, tried to sit up. Chuck walked over and knelt down. "Lesson's over, kid. You talk too much." And just like that, Chuck stood up and walked out of the ring. Blake lay there, completely ruined. His once cocky face was now twisted in pure disbelief. The reality of what had just happened hit him harder than any of Chuck's attacks. His cameraman hesitated, then pointed at the live stream chat. Dude, you might want to see this." Blake grabbed his phone and froze. His own fans were roasting him. "Rip Blake, 1998 to 2024. Cause of death, thinking he was better than Chuck Norris. Bro just lost all his sponsors in real time. This was the funniest thing I've ever seen, and I'm watching it at your expense. Thanks for the content." His face paled. His sponsors were pulling out faster than he could type. Brands didn't associate with losers. The gym owner stepped forward. "Blake, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave." Blake's eyes snapped up. Wait, what? "We don't tolerate unsportsmanlike conduct here, and I don't think you'll be comfortable coming back after, well..." He gestured toward Chuck, who was already grabbing his water bottle and heading toward the door. Blake sat there in stunned silence. He had lost, completely. And Chuck? Chuck hadn't even broken a sweat. As Chuck reached the exit, the gym owner called out, "Sir, what should we say if he tries to come back?" Chuck turned slightly and smiled. "Tell him what my mother always said, manners are free, but their value is priceless." Then, with all the grace of a legend, Chuck Norris walked out of Titan Fitness. The entire gym erupted in cheers, and that, my friends, is how Chuck Norris ended a gym influencer's career in under 10 minutes. If you enjoyed this story of humility versus arrogance, hit that like button and subscribe for more legendary stories. What would you have done in Blake's place? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, stay strong, stay humble, and remember, Chuck Norris is always watching.